Hello, welcome to Yoga with Rach and Rach. Thank you very much for joining me. We're on week 2 of our yoga for Scorpio season. So we're diving deep into our water element and we are actually focusing going into the sacrum. So not quite the lower back, not quite the tailbone, but the bit in between, which is your sacrum. And sacrum literally means sacred space. So maybe that's what your yoga practice means for you, that you're creating this sacred space for you to be able to move and connect and listen to your body. So we're going to start by finding a comfortable seat. Maybe you've come into this practice after last week's practice, so you can just find those moments of stillness. Maybe you've just come out of the mudra and the mantra practice. Or you might just be starting on your mat. Might be first thing in the morning, might be this afternoon, maybe moving into the evening and just wanting to check in and connect with your body and your breath. So whilst you're seated, check in with that area, your sacrum, the lower back. So this is where we get into the pelvis. So not the lower back, which is your lumbar spine, not the tailbone, but it's a fused bit of the back, right at the lower back, which is your sacrum. So we want to see how we feel here when we work with what's known as a neutral spine. And obviously the spine has slight curvatures, which is why we try to not say straight back, but for visual, it's almost what we're thinking or as what we define as a straight back. So we're in that neutral placement. Obviously this may vary from person to person, depending on what's going on in your back. Some people have got different things going on, say scoliosis, kyphosis, lordosis can have that different effect on the spine. Sometimes we don't realise that we're sitting and dropping into the lower back. So sitting up nice and tall, imagine that you have that piece of string lifting you up. Just a few more breaths here. And how does your lower back, or the lower part of your back, so the sacrum, really feel as you're sitting? So some people feel really uncomfortable here. So if that's you, then let me know in the comments below that you find sitting quite uncomfortable. Well, that's quite normal. So from here, we're actually going to find our way onto our back. We're going to check in with our pelvic tilt. So a really nice way to do this is lying on your back. So the knees are bent, knees and feet are hip width apart. So you're setting up, say if we're going into a bridge pose, so you're tucking the chin into the chest, so you're slightly lying on the back of your head. Hands can rest onto the belly, all fall softly away from the hips. I'm going to leave my hands on the belly so you can see what's going on in the hips. And we're going to focus on this area in the hips for our pelvic tilt. So we're focusing on what the tailbone and the hips, the lower back, are doing as we move here. So you're going to start by pushing the tailbone into the mat and your lower back will start to arch. So you could actually place both hands underneath your back where there's that arch now lifting up off the mat. And from there we're going to slowly tuck the tailbone. So it looks like you're drawing the hips towards you as you push your back into the mat. So you're pushing the tailbone into the mat, so you're pushing the hips away from you and your lower back arches. And you're tucking the tailbone, pushing the lower back into the mat. Have a few more goes. Push the tailbone into the mat, lower back arches, then tuck the tailbone, pushing the lower back into the mat. And it's quite nice to synchronise this with the breath. You might inhale here because you're creating that space in the belly, and then exhaling and you're slightly shortening into the front of the body. Inhaling, push the tailbone into the mat as the lower back arches, and exhale, tucking the tailbone, pushing the lower back into the mat. 2 more rounds. And just try to find that neutral spine here. So if you're tucking the tailbone, we need to start to push the tailbone away. If you're overly pushing the tailbone, we need to tuck the tailbone slightly. So just go between those 2 movements and see if you can find that area where it's neutral. And this is what we want to try and find when we're standing, when we're sitting, when we're lying on the back. depending on what we're doing when we're going into core work, we want to have a slight more tuck with the tailbone, so you're pushing your back into the mat, so this will help to support and protect your lower back. But when we're in that neutral place, we start to get a little bit of a lift of the lower back off of the mat. From here, we're going to slowly find our way up into tabletop. We're going to find that movement again into the tailbone and move in with the head and the neck as well when we go into our cat curls. So the knees are still bent, but the knees are now on the mat. Hands are on the mat underneath the shoulders. Spread the fingertips nice and wide. Stay with your breath. Inhale to lift the chin and lift the tailbone. Let the belly relax. And exhale, round through the spine to tuck the chin and the tailbone under. Inhale to lift the chin, lift the tailbone. Let's see the belly relax. And exhaling, rounding through the spine, tuck the chin, the tailbone under. And just notice how you feel moving in these pelvic tilts now that you're in tabletop. Does it feel more supportive, more fluid, less supported, but more movement, depending on whether it's easier to get that movement in the hips in tabletop or lying on your back. And it can vary from person to person, that's perfectly fine. Inhaling lift the chin and the tailbone, and exhale, rounding through the spine. Do 2 more, and then we're going to move into child's pose. As you inhale, lift the chin, lift the tailbone, and the belly relax. Exhale, rounding through the spine, tuck the chin and tailbone under. So from here, we're going to just gently round the spine. You can keep the knees hip width or take the knees wider, toes are touching. Start to pull the tailbone towards the heels, resting your forehead on the mat. Arms might be extended out in front of you, or for a few moments you might bring the hands to pause down by the feet. So you're welcome to move into child's pose as often as you need to in this practice, listening to and honouring the body. Scorpio is all about fluidity. So we're going into that water element, and we're going into that cycle of death and rebirth and soaring out into the world. And I quite like to see that as how we go through this next flow. So when we're in child's pose, we're allowing ourselves to pause and then waiting to lift back up out of the pose, out of the earth, out of the mat, and starting to move. So when you're ready, we can bring the arms out in front of us again, starting to activate into the hands. Spread the fingertips nice and wide, gently pushing into the palms of the hands. On your next inhale, slowly lift up into tabletop. And as you exhale, drawing back down into child's pose. Inhaling, lifting into tabletop. And exhale, drawing back down into child's pose. Few more breaths, and this might be the variation you stay with, which is perfectly fine. Inhaling, lifting up into tabletop. The knees can stay hip width if they were there for child's pose, that's perfectly fine. And exhaling, drawing down into child's pose. At any point, pause for a few rounds of breath in child's pose. Or if you're ready, we're going to add on. So the inhale will stay the same in tabletop, but every other exhale will be child's pose. So as you inhale, lift into tabletop, but now tuck under the toes, lift the knees and draw back and up into downward facing dog. Inhaling again, so lower the knees, moving into tabletop. And now we're on our next exhale, so we draw back down into child's pose. Inhaling, lifting into tabletop, and exhaling, drawing back and up into downward dog. Inhaling, lower the knees, moving into tabletop, and exhaling into child's pose. Pause if you need to, stay with just tabletop, or adding on lifting into downward dog if you wish to. Inhale as always, tabletop. And if you're adding on downward dog, every other exhale will be child's pose or downward dog. A few more rounds on your own, just gently moving, finding that slow flow. When you're ready, starting to have a little pause in child's pose. So from here, we're going to check in with Scorpion within our downward facing dog. So with this pose, we're going into a slightly different variation of our down dog splits, and a slightly different variation of our forearm downward dog or dolphin pose. So we don't quite lower them down onto the mat. If this was completely new to you, have a little go if it feels okay in your body. You might watch this one through first, so I'll go through it and really demonstrate this one for you, and you can add this on into that fluid flow if you wish to. So with our down dog scorpion, we're lifting into downward facing dog and moving into our down dog split. From here, we're bending the knee, so we're trying to create that scorpion tail, lifting the chin, looking at the hands, and we start to bend the elbows, but we don't place the forearms all the way down onto the mat. Instead, we start to lower down and we place the chest and the chin down onto the mat and push the leg up and over as far as we can. And then we're going to release by stretching the other leg back and lowering the leg down. We can stay low on the mat for low cobra, or lift up a little bit higher and gently releasing and draw back and up into downward dog, and having a go on the other side. So lifting into down dog splits, bending the knee, lifting the chin, so you're creating that scorpion tail. Start to bend the elbows and pull the body forward, bringing the chin and the chest down onto the mat. Push that leg up high, push the other leg away, and then we lower the legs down, lifting low or high into our back bend and releasing down. Have a go, doesn't matter which side you start with. Lifting one leg, bending the knee, lift the chin, so looking forward, bend the elbows and lower down. So it's a funny sort of chaturanga. Your chest and chin are resting on the mat. And we lower the legs, switch the leg away to lift into a cobra pose. Lowering down and into downward facing dog. Have a go on the other side. Lift, bend the knee, lift the chin. Bend the elbows, draw forward, bring the chin and the chest down onto the mat. Push the leg up and over. And then releasing. Find your back bend. Lower and have a pause in child's pose. So let me know in the comments how you believe you'll feel that you got on with that down dog scorpion. Let me know if it's the first time you tried that one. It's one of my favourites. It's been in my practice for a few years now, but it can be quite strong. So we want to be nice and gentle, so you're welcome to add that in if you wish to with your flow. So we're going to be going from child's pose to tabletop to downward dog. We're going to lift one leg up. I will talk you through that one, which side we're working with, going through the flow and into our back bend. Then we're going to draw back into child's pose and start again going back up through that fluid movement. So from your child's pose, if you're having a go, you can stay with the variation that feels right for you. So listen to your body. Arms are extended out in front of you. Stay with your breath as you inhale, lift into tabletop. Exhale, downward facing dog. Inhale, left leg lifts, down dog splits, bending the knee. Pause as you exhale, start to lift the chin and the chest. Exhale, bending the elbows, lowering down. Have a little pause, stay with your breath, releasing when you're ready. Take your time on an inhale, low or high cobra. Exhale, lower. Inhaling, lift, and exhale, draw back into child's pose. Focusing on the breath. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, downward dog. Inhale, right leg lifts. Exhale, bend the knee, lift the chin. Pause as you inhale. Exhale, pull the body forward. Pause for as long as feels comfortable. Whenever you're ready, gently releasing. Stay with your breath as you inhale, lift into a back bend. Exhale, lower. Inhale, lift. Exhale, draw back into child's pose. Have one more go if you wish to. Stay with your breath. Take your time. When you're ready, moving into child's pose. So you're welcome to stay in child's pose. Maybe you're finding your way up to sitting. You might want to have a go with a couple other practices that I'm going to link in here and here. If you haven't subscribed, please do by clicking the button here. It's completely free, just helps you to show your support for these free videos that I'm putting out here on YouTube. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed this video, do give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Like I said, leave me a few comments in the comment section below. I do reply to all of them, and I shall see you next week for another video for our Scorpio season. Namaste.